I promise to pay when I grow up. Black girl asks millionaire for milk. His response shocks all. I said I would pay when I grew up. The small girl's statements caused an odd silence to descend upon the establishment. Overhead, the security camera hummed softly. Before continuing, I want to invite you to like the video and leave a comment from where you are watching this beautiful story. The voice had pierced his busy mind like a whisper in a church, and a tall, graying man in a suit turned toward it, staring at a child no older than 8, holding a newborn wrapped in a faded towel. Jerome Carter, once nicknamed the Invisible Millionaire by Forbes for his ability to avoid making news despite having a huge digital empire, found himself in this situation. Anna was the girl's name. Her hands were dirty, her shirt was ruined, her jeans were torn at the knees, and her hair was knotted into uneven puffs. Cold and hungry. The infant moaned in her arms. Even though there was a chilly December wind outside, the store's coldness was now more intense. When she saw them, the cashier yelled, "Hey! This isn't a daycare!" "Leave!" Anna winced. She gripped the infant tighter and glanced down as she turned to go, her shoulders shaking from embarrassment rather than fear. With a calm yet powerful voice, Jerome took a step forward. She asked nicely, "I'm not stealing anything." Startled, the cashier looked up. "Carter, mister, take a look at her. She has no place here." Jerome remarked, "I'll judge that." People had started to take notice. "That's the girl who sleeps under the 7th Street Bridge," a woman muttered next to the magazines. "According to another man beside the refrigerator, I've heard that her mother is mentally ill and her father is incarcerated. It's a bad thing." Anna, still transfixed by the baby formula section, was crouching next to Jerome. "What's your name?" he inquired. "Anna," she murmured, avoiding eye contact with him. "What about the infant, my sibling, Elijah? He is one." Jerome's voice became softer. "You braved this cold to come here." Anna gave a nod. "Yesterday we ran out of milk. Elijah continues to weep. I waited for Mama to go to sleep so I could slip away. Because she occasionally yells, I didn't want her to follow me." The cashier was now standing awkwardly behind the counter, feigning to scan gum. And Jerome looked at her. "Have you got a coat?" "Gently," he inquired. Anna gave a headshake. "I put the blanket around Elijah. It's the only warm thing we have." He stood slowly while his thoughts raced through the kinds of calculations, backup plans, and choices that had once enabled him to create a multi-billion-dollar company, now circling a much more urgent problem. When a child approaches you with more bravery than any adult you've ever encountered, how do you respond? "And we're not just purchasing milk," he stated. "Remain near me." Jerome selected canned soup, bread, baby wipes, newborn formula, and a gallon of whole milk. Ignoring the other patrons' perplexed expressions, he added a pack of thermal socks and a box of diapers. Anna hardly made it to the counter at checkout. With 2 shaking hands, she held out the milk as though it were a jewel. "Thank you," she muttered, "sir. But when I'm older, I will definitely repay you. I mean it." Jerome gave a serious nod. "I have no doubts about you at all." The chilly wind impacted them more forcefully when they entered the parking lot. In order to prevent her tears from freezing, Anna blinked quickly. "Where are you lodging?" he inquired. Anna paused. "It's all right," he said. "I will not reveal." With hesitation but honesty, she glanced up at him. 7th and Douglas, under the bridge. Behind a pipe is a dry nook. I make sure no one can see us as I keep Elijah warm with newspapers and..." Nearby, a woman let out a loud gasp. She looked away in embarrassment as Jerome turned to face her. He looked back to Anna. "Would you like to be walked back?" She shrugged after hesitating once more. "When people see me with him, they yell, but you are welcome to come. Simply put, don't talk too loudly. Mama is easily frightened. As they strolled, Jerome felt an odd burden of obligation fall upon him, not the type you can assign, but the kind you bear, because leaving would be more of a burden than remaining would be. "Are you cold?" he inquired. Anna's teeth chattered, but she didn't respond. Once more, Elijah whimpered. Jerome draped his wool coat around her after removing it. She didn't fight back, but she did look astonished. Silently, they walked across the block till they could see the overpass. Above them, cars roared, and the stench of trash, wet pavement, and oil intensified. A woman was lying curled up on a stack of old blankets, her face buried behind a row of rusted shopping trolleys and a sheet of plastic. Footsteps roused her, and she sat up abruptly, her eyes crazed and distracted. Anna called softly, "Mama, there's simply a dude and me. He was helpful to us." The voice of her mother was slurred. "You were not meant to go." Jerome stayed away. He observed from a respectful distance. Elijah's shaky hands reached out, and the woman relaxed. He said quietly that she was just trying to obtain help. The woman remained silent. After giving the infant to Jerome, Anna turned to face him. "Now you can leave. We'll be all right. All I needed was the milk." Jerome, however, did not move. "Rather," he continued, "I would want to return tomorrow. Anna, is that okay?" Anna's head cocked. "Why?" He paused. Then he said, "Because someone should." With a clarity he hadn't experienced in years. Jerome didn't sleep that night. A tiny girl in a billionaire's coat was humming quietly to a newborn somewhere beneath the roar of the expressway. A man came to the realization that possibly the wealthiest thing he could ever be was needed in the silence of his glass penthouse. Please let us know in the comments where you're watching from, and if this story resonated with you, please like it to express your support for Anna. It's possible that someone nearby is currently watching with you. For more impactful stories like this one, remember to subscribe. As Jerome exited his black Lincoln SUV and locked the door behind him, the morning air irritated his lungs. He didn't have $1 million wardrobe today. He was the type of man who could have passed for someone passing through. Jeans, a heavy coat, and a basic blue sweatshirt, but without a suit or tie. However, he has previously negotiated multi-million-dollar mergers with the same keen, vigilant eyes. However, they were looking for something different today. Overnight, nothing had altered between 7th and Douglas. The gutters still held the rubbish. Overhead, traffic continued to growl at the bridge, but Jerome's gaze shifted to the underpass's far left corner, where Anna had shown him last night. A weight he hadn't anticipated thudded in his heart. He was terrified. For what he might or might not find, not for himself. He recognized the shopping cart filled with packed clothing and shattered toys, as well as the plastic tarp. Anna was curled up on a cardboard box that had been flattened. Like a second heartbeat, Elijah nestled into her chest. She had her eyes closed, but she opened them when his footsteps became too loud. Like a tiny animal, she sat up quickly, then relaxed upon seeing his face. She murmured in a hoarse voice from the cold, "You came back. I promised to." With Elijah's small fingers still gripping a corner of Jerome's garment, Anna drew him closer. She murmured that he didn't cry much the night before. The milk was helpful. Jerome handed her a thermos that he had taken out of his luggage. "The cocoa is warm and not overly sweet." She cracked the lid cautiously, took a sip, and sighed like a grown lady discovering tranquility when her eyes brightened with incredulity. "Tastes like Christmas," he said with a small smile. That was the concept. Jerome became nervous as he heard a sudden stir behind the plastic covering. With one hand supporting herself against the wall and the other protecting her eyes from the sunlight, Sarah cautiously came out. Her face vacillated between mistrust and recognition, and her hair was knotted. "You again?" she remarked in a raspy voice. Jerome said, I brought them breakfast." Sarah gave a slow nod, but her expression remained firm. She continued to stand as if she were prepared for combat. "You in the city, CPS?" "No," Jerome responded. "Just me." She looked at the paper bag he was holding. "What's inside?" "2 blankets and egg sandwiches." Sarah gave a quiet snort. Wealthy people always believe that blankets solve problems. Jerome concurred that they do not, but they do assist. Setting the bag down close to the wall, he took a step back. After taking one of the sandwiches out of it and giving it to Anna, Sarah sniffed it. She nibbled into her own sandwich and remarked, "You have to stop showing up. This is not the place for people like you." Without hesitation, Jerome replied, "Neither do you." She stopped in the middle of chewing, her eyes meeting his eyes sharp and worn and throbbing with a hurt that defied sympathy. "You have absolutely no idea where I belong," he responded softly. "I don't," but Sarah sneered. "I'd like to." "Why?" Jerome glanced at Sarah, then at Anna, then at Elijah. "Because I was trusted by your daughter, and because I didn't like how I felt when I left last night." "Oh." Sarah gave a headshake. "You experience guilt. For a few days, you will provide food, perhaps give us coats and words, and then disappear. They always disappear. I'm not them. You're just like them. Soft shoes, a fancy automobile, and eyes that see right through people." Anna eased the strain. "He spoke to me like a human being, Mama, not like the individuals who distribute socks at shelters." Jerome remained silent, allowing the words to fall into place. Sarah tightened her blanket and sat down against the wall at last. "Do you have children?" "No," he responded. "I have no children. My wife passed away 11 years ago. Are you lonely?" He gave one nod. Occasionally, a protracted stillness ensued. Elijah's soft licking on his fingers was the only sound, and the automobiles rumbled overhead like distant thunder. "Do you still wish to assist?" Finally, Sarah asked in a weak voice. "Indeed, then bring a means to escape, not just food." Jerome gasped with surprise. The true question was that a way out, not milk, not sandwiches. It was also no trivial matter. "I'm not looking for charity," Sarah added. "I'd like a chance. Without using a hose, I would like to wash my hair. Without watching over my shoulder, I want to go to sleep." "I get it," he said. "You don't, but perhaps you're trying. That's more than most people do," she said. Jerome glanced around. He saw something uncommon, a youngster who still believed in promises, and a mother who still had fire behind broken eyes, despite the scent of damp concrete and forgotten stories all around them. He got up, wiping the dust off his knees. "This is 3 blocks from a motel, for a week." "I can get you a room. Right now, only a week. Shower, a warm bed, and a secure door." Sarah gave him a look. "What's the catch?" "No catch. I don't even need your gratitude. Just make sure Elijah and Anna have clean linens for the night." She took a long time to respond. Then, gently, "We'll leave. But it's not a twisted power trip if you lie." She gave one nod. "Okay, then." While they were gathering their few belongings, Jerome contacted his helper from the pavement, reserved the room, and made arrangements for the delivery of a little bundle of toiletries. Although the procedure only took a few minutes, it had a profound impact on Sarah and Anna. Anna held Jerome's hand the whole time on the walk to the motel. She simply walked next to him as if it were the most natural thing in the world, without saying anything. She pulled his sleeve before they went into the lobby. "Carter, Mr. Yes, I'm delighted you came back, even if you didn't have to." Jerome's throat constricted. "So am I," he said softly as he gripped her hand. And when they entered a room with running water, warm beds and automated doors, Jerome became aware of something both basic and horrifying. This would not be a short-term situation, not for him. It was not a palace in the motel room. Time had discolored the walls. The heater wheezed like a dying animal, and the carpet had a slight cigarette odor. For Anna, however, it could have easily passed as a dream. She held Elijah in the middle of the room, her eyes wide, spinning slowly as though she was afraid that if she blinked too long, everything would disappear. "Warm," she muttered. From the doorway, Jerome gave a quiet smile. "The heater is that. Despite her age, she is employed." Sarah dropped their clothing in the plastic bag on the dresser. Her face was unreadable, trapped in the middle of fatigue and mistrust. Since she hadn't spoken much throughout the walkover, she appeared uncomfortable now that they were inside, like a bird that wasn't sure if the cage door was indeed open. On the table, Jerome set a tiny duffel, shampoo, toothbrushes, fresh towels, and diapers are also available. Sarah did not thank him, but she did nod. He didn't think she would. Since their relationship was still based on trust, gratitude could not be demanded. Carefully placing Elijah on the bed, Anna tucked the comforter's corners around him as if she had done it 100 times. With the warm air already working, he closed his eyes and cooed softly. Jerome folded his arms and rested against the wall. "Tomorrow, I'll check in again. Here, you'll have privacy. Front desk staff are aware that they shouldn't inquire." At last, Sarah said something. "Do you frequently do this?" "No," he responded. "I've never seen this before." She looked at him. "The bleeding heart type is not what you appear to be. I'm not, so why?" He hesitated before responding. "Since I am able to, because I ought to have taken this action a long time ago." Her expression wavered, but it was one of acknowledgement of honesty rather than sympathy. Anna approached and dug inside her pocket before he could continue. She took a tiny, rumpled napkin out and gave it to him. Shyly, she said, "I drew this for you." Jerome spread it out. There was a faint pencil drawing of a tall man holding hands with a baby and a little girl. The word "home" was scrawled over the door of the building they were standing in front of. He cleared his throat. Anna smiled and said, "You're a real artist. When I'm afraid, drawing helps." Jerome was unsure of how to respond to that. Gently folding the napkin, he slipped it into the pocket of his coat. Then continue sketching. "Well," Sarah murmured softly. "I don't get too close," as he took a step back, his hand already on the doorknob. He pivoted. "To what end? To us. Although you seem like a kind man, this life, the ship, is sinking. I'm not here to save lives," he declared. "As long as you allow it, I'm only here to walk with you." She didn't respond. Jerome returned to his penthouse that evening. Automatically, the lights came on, softly illuminating the polished floors, the gleaming kitchen counters, and the infinite windows overlooking Los Angeles. It was empty, sterile, and lovely. Despite pouring himself a tumbler of scotch, he chose not to sip it. Rather, he went to the couch and sat down, still holding Anna's sketch in his pocket. The heat from his body warmed the paper. He had never felt more alive than when he saw a girl sleeping under spotless covers 3 miles away who had offered to pay for milk. The rain came with the morning. By 8 in the morning, Jerome was already returning to the motel with a new coat for Anna in one hand and a bag of fresh pastries in the other. However, the door to room 109 was ajar when he got there. They made the bed. The toiletries were unopened. With military accuracy, the blankets were folded. They had vanished. He felt sick to his stomach. He entered and looked in the closet, the bathroom, and even under the bed. Nothing. He made his way to the reception area, 109's family. They went where? A young man chewing gum. The clerk shrugged. The woman arrived early, claimed they were unable to stay. Leaving the key behind, they left. No justification, didn't inquire. His heart pounding a bit too quickly, Jerome thanked him and went out into the drizzle. He looked around the alleys, the sidewalk and the street. Nothing. They were gone. Anna had been reluctant to go. Just before dawn, Sarah awoke her with a quick whisper to pack, to which Anna objected. "It's warm here." "Though, Mama, Mr. Carter promised to return," Sarah growled. "That's precisely why we can't stay. Those that give too much are never good because they always expect something in return." Despite not comprehending, Anna had complied since she knew better than to protest. They went back toward nothing, back into the cold, through the side stairs. For the remainder of the day, Jerome drove around the communities around the bridge, making stops at soup kitchens, shelters, and even the little park where he had distributed bottled water 5 years prior at a charity function. No indication. He went back to the bridge that evening. The temporary mattress was gone, the place was damp from the rain, and it was quiet. The area where Anna used to live was now only shadows and concrete. Watching the rain create little rivers along the roadway, he sat on the curb's edge. He was aware that she might flee. Even so, he had anticipated it, but not this quickly or without farewell. He took the napkin sketch from inside his coat and unfolded it in the streetlight. The image was still distinct, though the wetness had somewhat softened the pencil lines. The term home, a baby, a girl, and a man. How long he sat there was unknown to him. He could let the rain soak through his shoes for an hour or two. "Wherever you go, Anna, I'm not done," he said to the deserted street as he rose up. Then, with the napkin still clenched in his palm like an unfulfilled promise, he headed back toward his car. Jerome skipped work the following morning. His assistant called twice, first over a misfiled real estate deal and the other regarding a postponed investor meeting. He left it on voicemail both times. Shareholders and stocks were not on his mind. He was thinking about a mother who fled from kindness as if it were a threat, a daughter who had a small brother and an absent father, and a girl who had promised to pay him back for milk. His wallet now contained Anna's sketch, carefully folded inside a coffee loyalty card he had never used, and his driver's license. Their names appeared as though they were etched into the paper each time he opened it: Sarah, Elia, and Anna. Like a man pursuing ghosts, Jerome navigated the city. He paused once more at the 7th Street Bridge, looking around the shadowy nooks for evidence that they had come back. The sidewalk had been cleaned by the rain. There were no blankets, food wrappers, or even shoe marks. He had been to 3 shelters by midday. Finally, he received something at the 3rd Avenue Red Brick Community Center, which has a crumbling mural of happy kids. "Yeah," a slender woman at the front desk remarked. "Yesterday, I saw a girl with a baby. She had wide eyes and a little shabby coat." Jerome bent closer. "With a female, in your early 30s, dark hair?" Perhaps irritated or nervous. Slowly, the woman nodded. She was anxious, so she departed after saying something about not trusting the government and taking some diapers. "Did they mention their destination?" "I apologize, but I believe the girl Anna told me to inquire about food banks in the Wilshire area." Wilshire, it was the direction, but not much. After thanking her, Jerome walked away. By 3 p.m., he was squeezing through Koreatown, looking around bus stops and into alleys. After purchasing a pack of gum from a corner store close to Vermont Avenue, he asked the cashier if they had ever seen a young female holding a baby. Nobody had. He saw a corkboard beside the door just as he was ready to depart. There was a piece of paper pinned close to the bottom among the fading flyers and business cards. Located. A blue, star-studded children's blazer in size XS was located on Wilshire, Hoover Corner. if it's your call." He photographed the number. Then he gave a call. A female voice answered. "Hi there. Yes, the jacket that was put on the board at Sam's Market is the reason I'm calling. It might belong to someone I'm trying to find." A pause occurred. "Do you know the kid?" "Anna is her name. She's around 8 years old, has a younger brother, and their mother is named Sarah." Her voice grew softer. "2 nights ago, I caught sight of them. They were seated next to the taco vendor outside the laundry. When they departed, the young girl dropped the jacket. Are you aware of their destination? I believe they were on their way to MacArthur Park. All I know is that Jerome's breathing became labored. Thank you. Are they all right?" He answered, "I pray to God they are." He headed directly for MacArthur Park. The waning sun was painting the sky amber. Pigeons clustered around the few who had not yet departed for the shelters, and the lake glistened darkly. Before he was interrupted by a sound, Jerome strolled leisurely, looking at every bench and every area of the playground. It was singing, not crying. There was a gentle hum that was nearly inaudible over the traffic. As he turned to face the sound, he noticed a figure crouched behind a short hedge close to the park's far side, a girl humming a lullaby-like tune while rocking slowly. He called Anna. She stopped. Jerome took a step forward. "My name is Mr. Carter." Her eyes widened as she turned. Elijah blinked up at the unexpected light and moved in her lap. She inhaled. "Mr. Carter, you located us." She appeared paler and slimmer. She had a cracked lip. She was still able to smile, though. "You'll come," I promised Mama. However, she became frightened. "People don't help if they don't want something in return," she stated. Jerome squatted down next to them. "Is she present?" Anna gave a headshake. She went in search of Elijah's medication. "Wait," she said. "It happened this morning. Oh, how much time have you spent by yourself?" She gave a shrug. "Some time." Jerome glanced around. The wind had increased. The temperature was rapidly decreasing. "Come on," he urged. "Tonight, you're not going to stay here. However, Mama, we'll leave a message. However, you and Elijah require food, warmth, and security. Your mother would prefer that." After a moment of hesitation, she glanced down at her brother. "All right." Carefully lifting Elijah, he held him in his arms, as if he had done it 1,000 times. Silent and little, Anna trailed behind him, her hand firmly gripping his coat. He didn't take them to a motel this time. He brought them home. With a soft chime, the elevator opened into Jerome's apartment. Anna carefully entered, her eyes wide as she took in the boundless windows and shining floors. Still in Jerome's embrace, Elijah murmured in his slumber. "Do you reside here?" she inquired. Yes," Jerome replied. "You will also reside there for the time being." "Oh." She glanced at the large leather couch in the kitchen, the framed black and white picture of Jerome and a woman with the benevolent, long-deceased Aisha's wife. "You have a bedroom, right?" "3," he said. "However, the one with the large window will be yours." Anna lowered her voice. "I've never had a bed of my own," Jerome said with a kind smile. "After that, it's time." After carefully placing Elijah on the couch and covering him with a throw blanket, he turned back to Anna. He said, "You, me, your mom, we'll figure it out. But we start with this. You're safe tonight." Anna nodded, and for the first time since they had first met, she shed silent, appreciative tears instead of ones filled with panic or noise. Headlights and sirens illuminated the metropolis outside. But Hope was finally able to enter through a door that had finally opened wide enough. That night, Jerome didn't get much sleep. The city below him flickered and glowed like a restless sea of stars as he sat in the leather recliner by the window. In the penthouse behind him, the gentle hum of the heater blended with the rustle of the guest bedroom, where Anna and Elijah were at last sleeping comfortable, secure, and fed. Sarah was still out there, though. He could not get her face out of his mind, cautious, haughty, and weighed down by too many years of observing people come and go. Hours had gone by, but Jerome was certain she had intended to return to MacArthur Park that afternoon. The sun was gone. Nothing was found in the police reports on his laptop, no arrests, no hospital admissions that fit her description, just silence. He called Michael Sandler, a former LAPD investigator who now owned a private investigation company. At 3 a.m, "It's Jerome, Mike. Jerome, are you phoning me at this hour of the night? Is someone dead?" "Not yet, but I fear that if I do nothing, someone might be—" Mike was quiet for a moment. "I'm paying attention. I need help locate Sarah, a woman in her early 30s with black hair and lean features who may be dealing with mental health issues. She was last seen at MacArthur Park and may be seeking medication for her baby boy. Are you homeless?" "Indeed." "And you have a special place for this woman, a young girl who is staying in my guest room. Find significance in her." Mike blew a whistle. "Okay, when the sun comes up, I'll put my team on it." "Thank you," Jerome said. "Whatever it takes, bill me. You got it." By the time Jerome fell asleep, it was almost morning, groggy. He opened his eyes to the sound of dishes clinking and the fragrance of toast. When he entered the kitchen, Anna was standing on a stool, watching the bread in the toaster with great interest, as if it were a unique show. When she saw him, she turned. "Greetings, Mr. Carter." He rubbed his eyes and murmured, "Good morning, Anna." She shrugged. "You didn't have to make breakfast." Jerome grinned more broadly than he had in months as he heard Mama add, "If someone gives you a roof, you better give them a reason not to regret it. Think of this toast as justification." Well, together. They sat in the kitchen aisle, with Elijah in a bouncer seat, Anna sipping orange juice, and Jerome sipping coffee. Jerome delivered before dawn, having placed the order hours before. Keeping the conversation light, Jerome inquired about her favorite color, comb, book, and whether she liked animals. She responded cautiously at first, then more casually. He started smiling when she told him about the plush raccoon she had once called Buttons after finding it in a garbage can. But her shoulders tensed when he inquired about Sarah. "She always returns. Do you remember where she went yesterday?" Anna whispered softly. "I don't believe she made it, but she mentioned the corner drugstore on Wilshire. She gets trapped sometimes. Sometimes. Are you stuck?" Anna's gaze lowered to her juice. Her brain begins to buzz. She becomes frightened, and her breathing becomes difficult. She then takes off running. Jerome felt his heart hurt. "Has that ever occurred before?" Anna gave a nod. "She went missing for 2 days last year, returned with cuts on her hands, and claimed to have battled shadows." Gently, he reached out and placed his hand over hers. "Someone is assisting me in finding her. A decent dude. He was a cop once. We'll track her down." Her speech remained calm despite her intense blinking. "You swear?" "Yes, I do. Mike called later that morning. We may have something, Jerome." A woman who fit Sarah's description was spotted straying close to a Temple Street clinic that was closed. She asked for baby aspirin while barefoot and bewildered. "Has anyone contacted emergency services?" "Yes." Concerned, a store clerk phoned for a wellness check, but she had already left when responders got there. With his mouth clenched, Jerome paced the living room. What would she do next? Mike was silent for a while. "She is most likely heading somewhere she believes to be safe if she's afraid, and stays away from hospitals. Perhaps shelter, or back alleyways close to former hangouts. Check out the alley behind the old Korean church on Wilshire. Jerome thought for a second. Anna once brought it up. She mentioned that the choir music made her mother happy, so they would sit there on Sundays. I'll send someone. Mike gave another call an hour later. We located her. Jerome tightened his chest. Is she all right? In a physical sense? Indeed, in the mind. She's shook, was holding a broken baby bottle while sobbing while seated against the church's side, refused to talk to anyone. Now where is she? She was persuaded to visit my clinic. There's my wife. She deals with cases of trauma. She helped her relax so she could sleep. I'll be there. The clinic was tiny, hidden behind a coffee shop and a florist. Be discreet, private. Inside, Jerome discovered Sarah curled up on a plastic couch with her shoes next to her and a donated blanket wrapped around her. She didn't recognize him for a second as she looked up as he walked in. Her eyes then grew wide. Anna, where are you? Elijah and she are secure in my house. Relief caused her body to slump, but then the panic came back. I had no intention of abandoning her. Tu was looking for his medication because I didn't have any, and he had a cough. Oh, do you understand? Jerome answered softly. You don't need to elaborate. You gave it your all. Her cheeks were wet with tears. You wouldn't still be looking, I thought. I would. I told Anna. Sarah's gaze lowered to her hands. Why are you concerned? Why are you helping us with this? Jerome took a seat next to her. Since I am able to... Because, in my opinion, humans are worthy of more than just survival. With tears still streaming down her face, she nodded slowly. I'm afraid. Yet I want help. What if I make a mistake? When Jerome said, you probably will, her head jerked up in surprise. Even though we all do, you still deserve another chance. Her laughter was broken and wet. I didn't anticipate you. He grinned. You're not either. They sat silently for a long time. Come home, Jerome said. Sarah gazed at him. To your home, for the time being, until we determine what to do next. Your daughter is waiting for you. And a son who, for the first time in weeks, slept through the night. She paused. At last, she gave a nod. And Jerome Carter took a fragment of the shattered world home with him for the second time in 2 days. With a gentle ping, the elevator doors opened, and Sarah entered Jerome's apartment hesitantly, as if she were entering a different reality. Even though the clinic had provided her clean clothes, she still moved cautiously, with her shoulders slightly bent and her eyes darting to every corner. She was first noticed by Anna. "Mama," she said as she ran out of the corridor, her bare feet scuffing the shiny floor. As Anna rushed into Sarah's arms, Sarah dropped her bag and knelt down. For a brief moment, they were the only two people in the world, clinging to one another like two halves of a soul. Anna muttered, "I was so scared. I believed a negative event had occurred." "Now I'm here," Sarah whispered. "I didn't intend to leave. My thoughts were noisy." Jerome gave them room by standing silently at the kitchen island. As he watched them, something old, hollow, and long-sealed cracked open in his chest. Sarah hurried to Elijah when he woke up from his nap and began to fuss, holding him to her bosom as if it were the only thing keeping her from floating away. She picked him up. Her smile was melancholy as she said, "I forgot how heavy he's gotten." "He must have been eating, then," Jerome responded, "twice a day, and more if Anna talks me into it." Anna smiled. "Elijah like mashed bananas," I informed him. Jerome said, "We even purchased a bouncer chair." With fresh eyes, Sarah surveyed the penthouse's shining surfaces, dim lighting, and floor-to-ceiling windows. She was still tense, but not as much. She felt grounded by the weight of her kids in her arms. Jerome pointed to the table where he had laid out his meal, comfort food he hadn't prepared since college, tomato soup, apple slices, and grilled cheese. He had undersalted the soup, and burned the first sandwich, but the second batch had turned out okay. "It's warm," he observed, "but not fancy." Anna's eyes glowed. "A genuine table is never where we sit." Sarah whispered, "Not since we lost Grandma's house." She assisted Anna into her chair and gently lowered Elijah into his. After pouring 3 glasses of water, Jerome joined them in their seats. For the most part, they ate quietly, the sort that feels healing, the good kind. Sarah looked up halfway through the dinner. "Surely this won't last forever." Jerome gave a nod. "Just till you're ready. Number, since I wish to merit it. Being a charity case is not what I desire." "I get it," he said. "I've already begun researching safe, private, transitional housing programs with support services. Slowly." Sarah nodded. "That would be beneficial." Anna persuaded Jerome to assist her in creating a pillow fort in the living room after lunch. They built eye-tuing couch cushions, throw blankets, and even some of Jerome's pricey linen sheets, which he gave up without hesitation for almost an hour. Anna curled up next to Elijah, who was now wide-eyed and joyfully stomping his feet inside the fort. With a silent smile on her face, Sarah observed from the recliner. Jerome sat across from her and brought her a mug of chamomile tea. She remarked, "I forgot how quiet a real home can be." Jerome gave a nod. Silence can be beneficial. After taking a sip of the tea, she turned to face him. "Someone has passed away." He did not recoil. "My spouse. It was 10 years ago. Cancer." Sarah's face grew softer. "I apologize. When Mom passed away, I left this place exactly how it was. The books on the shelf and the furniture are identical." "Never quite moved on. Why not?" Looking into his cup, Jerome gazed. "Perhaps I reasoned that she wouldn't feel lost if I maintained everything the same." Slowly, Sarah nodded. "I'm also familiar with that type of silence. Their voices are missed, as well as their scent, the sensation of the air when they enter a space." For a while, they sipped tea while sitting quietly. Sarah then questioned, "Why us?" Jerome raised his head. "You might have gone by. After you gave Anna the milk, you could have left. However, you remained. Why?" He pondered for a long time before responding. "Because everyone tells me that money solves all problems. Furthermore, it doesn't. However, it still matters to show up, listen, and share a meal, a room, or a moment. Perhaps I needed the reminder just as much as you did." Sarah blinked quickly before turning her head away. She said, "I don't know how to do this." Allowing others to enter and putting her trust in them. Jerome said, "You don't have to know. Simply begin." Using actual colored pencils that Jerome had purchased earlier that day, Anna drew once more that evening after supper, this time at the coffee table. This time she used 4 stick figures to draw a house, a baby, a girl, a lady, and a man. She tried writing one word in large block letters above them. Before going to bed, she gave it to Jerome. This is superior to the original one. Carefully, as if it could shatter. He gripped it. Yes, it is. After putting Elijah to sleep in the crib in the guest room, Sarah watched Anna brush her teeth in the mirror while standing in the hallway. Sarah remarked softly, "She's already different," Jerome answered. "She feels safe." Sarah gave him a quick look. "I want to be more than simply a survivor. I want to be the mother she deserves. You already surpass that." After they stood there for a little while longer, Sarah muttered, "Udam, I'm still not sure if I can trust this." "Have faith in you," Jerome said. "I don't expect you to. However, I will continue to appear." After giving a nod, she vanished into the guest room. The living area felt less empty, even though Jerome was left alone once more. A crayon was beneath the couch, there were crumbs on the table, and faint laughter could be heard coming from down the hall. Jerome Carter's house felt alive and breathing for the first time in a long time. He came to the realization that finding a house for himself might be more important than assisting them in finding one. The penthouse was bathed in warm light as the morning sun streamed through the windows in gentle golden sheets. Jerome woke up to the faint sound of humming and the scent of eggs rather than to quiet. It was a moment before he realized it was not a dream. When he entered the kitchen barefoot and rubbing his eyes, he saw Sarah wearing one of his big flannel shirts, cooking at the stove with her back to the wall and her hair twisted back into a bun. With her legs swinging, Anna sat at the kitchen and used a plastic spoon to give Elijah little morsels of mashed banana. Jerome remarked, his voice still hoarse from sleep, "Good morning." Sarah smiled slightly as she turned. Anna waved. "You looked like you needed it, so we thought we'd let you sleep." With a laugh, Jerome reached for a mug and said, "Mama made eggs the way Grandma used to burnt a little. It sounds ideal. There was no ceremony, only affection as they ate together once more." Today, Sarah's eyes were closer and her hands more steady. Her complexion had a little more color, and Jerome could tell she had taken a shower. Something real but frail caught his eye. Advancement. After breakfast, Jerome gave Sarah a manila folder he had taken out of his briefcase. "What is this?" she inquired. "A couple of choices," he said. "I did some research on transitional housing programs, ones involving childcare, employment placement, and therapy." Slowly, Sarah flipped through the pages of the folder. "These appear to be costly." He acknowledged that they are, "but I'll pay for it, at least for the first half year." She put the folder down. "This cannot continue." Her hands clenched. "I can, and I will. Until you tell me not to." Anna shouldn't grow up believing that individuals like you are magical and that someone would always come to her aid. She's already saving herself. "So she won't," Jerome replied firmly. "She battles every day to maintain her kindness in a world that has attempted to shatter her. That is not fiction. That is strength." Sarah swallowed hard and turned aside. "I'm not sure how to be yet. A component of something." He answered, "You're already a part of something. This very moment." They were all surprised by a gentle rap on the door. Jerome carefully opened the peephole after checking it. On the opposite side was a tall, broad-shouldered man dressed in a charcoal suit. "I didn't expect you today," Jerome stated of Mike Sandler. Mike intervened and tilted his head in Sarah's direction. Sarah tensed. "I just wanted to check in and make sure everyone's okay." "Are you a police officer?" Holding up both hands, he said, "I'm not here to question. I'm here because I understand what it's like to fall between the cracks." With Elijah in her arms, Anna peered out from behind her mother. Mike squatted. "You're tougher than most adults I know, youngster," Anna smiled. Mike stood up. "Jerome, pay attention. This morning I learned about something. A man inquired about Sarah and the children, according to a local outreach volunteer." Jerome's forehead wrinkled. "Who?" "Said he was looking for a woman with a girl and a baby, but he didn't mention his name. He also mentioned debt." Sarah turned pale. "God, please." Jerome gave her a look. "Sarah?" She shut her eyes. "He is Elijah's father, Darnell. He spent time in and out of prison. He disappeared when I became pregnant. However, he returned with more venom once Elijah was born. He threatened to kidnap the baby if I didn't reimburse him for his trouble." Jerome's tone grew gloomy. "Did he threaten you? Several times. I continued to move, hiding. I believed he had forgotten about us." Mike spoke firmly. "It is necessary that we file something if he is asking around, an order of restraining. Get you on the record, at least." With a trembling voice, Sarah nodded. "All right, but I don't want Anna to be afraid. She's experienced enough." Beside Anna, Jerome knelt. "Have you listened to our words?" Slowly, Anna nodded. "Don't be afraid," he murmured softly. However, we will ensure that you remain safe here. She gripped his sleeve tightly. Promise. He gave her a direct glance. Assure me. Mike and Sarah went to the precinct that afternoon to file the paperwork. Jerome remained with the children. They watched vintage cartoons, constructed another pillow fort, and Jerome even succeeded in making grilled cheese this time without it burning. But the same thought kept coming back to him. There was more to safety than food and warmth. It served as defense against the shadows that individuals carried around, and they had just had a visit from Sarah's past. Sarah appeared exhausted, yet relieved when she came back. Done, she declared. Tomorrow they will process it. Jerome gave a nod. You made the correct decision. Well, Sarah and Jerome sat on the terrace that evening after Anna had gone to bed. The metropolis lay in front of them, blind and glittering. Sarah whispered softly, I used to think that being strong meant staying invisible, keeping your head down, not requesting assistance. Now, what do you think? Allowing someone to see you when you're broken, maybe that's strength. Jerome remained silent. Simply listen. She said, I used to sleep with one hand on a broken beer bottle and one arm around Anna. Even when there was nothing left to defend, I was always prepared to fight. You are no longer in that world, Jerome remarked. But what if... She muttered, it pursues me. Then, collectively, we confront it. She gave him a look. It doesn't frighten you? I fear that I will fail her, he remarked, as well as you. Sarah put her palm over his and reached across, not as a romantic gesture, but as an acknowledgement. Have faith, the silent start of a healing process. She said, you're not failing. Jerome believed it for the first time in years, despite the imminent danger. He believed it despite the past gnawing at their door, because survival was no longer the only concern. Rebuilding was the focus. Together. Jerome got up early the following morning. The flat was still enveloped in a reassuring silence, and the sun hadn't broken the horizon yet. He made a pot of coffee, padded silently into the kitchen, and watched the city pass beneath the heavy skies. A storm was on its way. A distant thunderclap sounded like a warning. A bit later, Sarah joined him, her hair still wet from the shower and still dressed in the same baggy flannel shirt. She appeared more like the mother Anna had portrayed in her pictures, stronger than ever and more like a ghost. Coffee? Jerome volunteered. She gave a nod. Please. Powerful. As they sipped from matching mugs and watched the sky change from charcoal to deep grey, they sat in silence for a while. Darnell was between them, in the silence, in the air. But neither of them mentioned him. The silence was broken by Jerome. Last night, Mike's precinct buddy gave me a call. By noon, the restraining order will be in effect. That's something. Sarah gave a nod. However, that doesn't deter Darnell or anybody else from showing up. No, Jerome concurred, but if he does, it provides us power and a legal foundation on which to stand. Her gaze was fixed on her coffee. Unlike most males, he is unique. Rules don't matter to him. Oh. Jerome delicately placed his palm over hers as he reached across the table. I don't care what kind of man he believes he is. If he gets close to you, he will have to pass through me. Sarah smiled tightly. You speak as if you've never been struck in the face. Jerome laughed. Do fights in the boardroom count? This time she really laughed. Full, yet light and raspy. It was the sound of someone recalling how Sarah and Anna had gone to the local community center later that morning. Jerome had set up a private session with a counselor who had experience working with survivors of domestic abuse. He remained behind with Elijah, who needed constant distraction because he had started teething. Jerome tried to seem like everything was normal, while Elijah chewed on a chilly teething ring, answered emails, and planned a few business calls for the next week. But he kept looking toward the penthouse elevator every few minutes, hoping it would take them home. Then the security desk in the building buzzed just before noon. "There's a man downstairs asking for Sarah," Mr. Carter said, crackling over the intercom. "He says he's her husband. Should we send him up?" The blood in Jerome froze. He said, "Hold him there, don't let him go, I'm coming." He hurried to the private elevator after grabbing his coat. His thoughts were already formulating scenarios, backup plans, and potential outcomes before he even realized it. Jerome spotted him when the foyer doors opened, and he stepped out, like a predator scouting for his next meal. Darnell stood by the front entrance, with his hands tucked inside his hoodie, and his gaze darting over the marble foyer. Tall and slender, he had a grin that stopped short of his eyes. Jerome approached him directly. "You're intruding." Darnell examined him from head to toe. "It looks like you're the new boyfriend." Darnell scoffed. "Ah! I'm the man who's going to make sure you don't get near Sarah or those kids. All I want to do is speak with her. That right was taken away from you long ago." Sensing tense, Jerome saw two security guards creep closer. Darnell raised his hands and declared, "I'm not here to fight. All I desire is what is mine." "You don't have them," Jerome yelled. "They're not your property, and I'll make sure you depart in handcuffs if you even move toward that elevator." Darnell's gaze grew strained. "Do you believe that having money makes you unbeatable?" "No," Jerome responded calmly. "But I've got more than enough of it to keep you out of their lives forever, and it makes me hard to ignore." Darnell remained motionless for a moment, then let out a sour laugh. "Big man helping the poor small family. You're acting like a hero, huh?" Jerome remarked, "I'm not playing anything. I stand between the people I love and a threat. Before you give me an excuse to escalate this, you should go now." Darnell gazed at him for a long moment more. Then he shrugged, turned, and headed for the door. "Tell her," he murmured behind his back. "It's not over yet." Jerome turned to the security guy after watching him vanish down the sidewalk. "I want the entire description to be recorded. Archived camera footage. Make a police call right away if he reappears." Jerome had hardly had time to gather himself when the elevator chimed once more in the penthouse. With their faces reddened from the cold, Sarah and Anna took over. At the center, Anna held a paper butterfly she had created. Sarah halted when she noticed Jerome's expression. What took place? Quietly, Jerome murmured, "He came. He stated he wanted to speak with you downstairs." Sarah turned pale. "Is Anna?" "He was never seen by her. She is secure. Both of you are. Now he's gone." Sarah's hands were shaking as she sat on the couch. "Every time, he vanishes for years before reappearing like a nightmare. Jerome promised that he would never again approach you. Not while I'm here. Oh no." She gazed at him with a mixture of shame and appreciation. "This is not what you signed up for. He said I didn't have to. I decided to." Anna showed her mother the butterfly by climbing into her lap. "Look, Mama, they said it signifies fresh starts." Sarah ran her hand through her daughter's hair. "It's stunning." Jerome's heart constricted as he watched them. He had experienced economic downturns, tech mergers and boardroom conflicts, but nothing had ever mattered more than this in preventing the dissolution of this delicate family. When the clouds finally parted, a gentle, steady rain started to fall outside. Trying, Jerome took the sketch with the stick figures beneath the word out of his wallet. Since continuing to try was now the most powerful thing they could do in the face of danger, fear, and previous storms, he placed it on the counter where they could all see it. Together, the rain persisted through the night, gently beating against the penthouse's expansive glass windows. The atmosphere inside was weak and muted. Anna insisted on helping Jerome make spaghetti for supper, throwing the noodles with more zeal than competence. The only thing that appeared unaffected by the tempest that had returned to their lives was her genuine and brilliant laughter. Sarah ate very little, With her fork in hand and her eyes averted, she sat at the table as if she were simultaneously present and absent. Her fingers curled slightly around the edge of her dish as if ready to strike, and Jerome saw how she winced at abrupt noises. Jerome discovered her standing at the window with her arms folded, gazing out onto the city below. After Anna and Elijah had fallen asleep, when he got close, she didn't turn. "When I think about him, I can't breathe," she whispered quietly. "I keep waiting for someone to knock, for him to injure you or Elijah, or for him to abduct Anna." Jerome remarked, "He won't get close." "The level of security has doubled. Mike is keeping a close eye on everything. We're safe." She gave a headshake. "If a man like Darnell wants something, no lock or camera can stop him. Rules don't frighten him." Jerome moved to her side. "Then we give him another item to be afraid of." She gave him a stern look. "You sound like a man who has never experienced fear." "I've been afraid of doing the right thing a lot," Jerome said. Sarah's voice broke. "But what if this is ruined by me? Everything else has been damaged by me." Jerome put a gentle touch on her shoulder and extended out. "Nothing was ruined by you. You made it through. You're healing now. That is courage, not failure." With tears in her eyes, she turned to face him. "Why are you so concerned?" He hesitated. "Because I see beyond your history and wounds to who you are. The mother who saved her children when no one else would is the one I see. Your strength serves as a reminder of the kind of man I aspire to be, which is why I care." She leaned against him for a second, just enough to settle herself, and let out a shaky exhale. Jerome took Sarah and Anna to the community center the following day for a group therapy session. Despite Sarah's reluctance, Jerome understood it was essential. It took a team to heal. It needed backing, witnesses, and perhaps mirrors. Jerome wrapped Elijah tightly in a weatherproof sling and carried him to the park while they were away. At last, the air was crisp and the sky was clear. He observed other parents and nannies pushing kids on swings and chasing them over mounds of damp leaves while perched on a bench close to the playground. A warm-eyed, grey-haired woman came over and grinned at Elijah. "The first one?" she inquired. It was not quite true, but Jerome nodded. "In a way," she laughed. "Do they not transform you?" "Yes," Jerome answered, softly bouncing Elijah. "They do." She took a seat next to him. "I lost one kid in Iraq, but I raised 3, every Sunday. The other 2 still give me a call. As children develop, the concern never goes away." Jerome gave her a quick look. "Does the dread ever subside?" Her face was gentle as she gazed at him. The love becomes louder than the number. He thought about that all day. Sarah came back from her session later that night, lighter but quieter. Jerome saw her stance change, less burdened but still guarded, even though she didn't say much. Everyone had hot chocolate from Anna, who insisted on having additional marshmallows. That evening, Jerome sat in his study talking on the phone with Mike, while Sarah bathed Elijah and Anna colored at the table. "I have news," Mike remarked. "Since his visit, we have been monitoring Darnell. He has been making inquiries at shelters, primarily in downtown. He appears to be lodging at a rundown house close to Crenshaw. Is he armed? His record is not spotless, but there isn't any confirmation yet. Are you okay with me speaking with someone at the DA's office?" Jerome paused. "No, not yet, unless absolutely necessary. I do not want to drag Sarah through the legal system." Mike let out a sigh. "After that, we wait while remaining prepared." After hanging up, Jerome went back to the living room. With her head resting against a throw pillow, Anna had slept off on the couch. After a restless hour, Elijah was finally peaceful as Sarah rocked him while sitting cross-legged on the floor. Jerome said, "I got a message from Mike." She didn't raise her head. "And he has Darnell in his sights." Sarah nodded. "For now, we're safe." "Thanks," Jerome said hesitantly. "Have you ever considered returning Sarah? Not to him, but to a location of your own, a location where you don't constantly check your back." "I used to," she muttered. "I'm not sure how that place looks anymore." Although he knelt next to her, "Perhaps it's a choice rather than a location, to rebuild, to cease running." "Oh," she gave him a look. "Alongside you," Jerome said, "with whoever you choose, but for however long you need me, I'll be here." With a little smile, she brushed Elijah's curls. "I've never met anyone like you. You deserve better than what you've received, so that's good," he remarked. The rain had ceased outside. The city shone in the moonlight and glistened in puddles. Sarah sat back against the couch inside for the first time in weeks, let out a long breath, and uttered 3 words she hadn't used in years. "I feel secure." And that was more valuable to Jerome than any title he had ever received or any business he had ever closed. Because true safety was uncommon, it was theirs now. The next several days fell into a routine of being careful, quiet, and surprisingly warm. It was surprisingly easy for Jerome to adjust to having kids in his house. Elijah's abrupt cries reverberated through the corridors, and he no longer recoiled at the sound of a bottle smashing to the ground. Their turmoil had a grounded quality, a genuine quality. Sarah started to come out of the armor-like shell she had been wearing. She and Anna went on longer walks, and she even enrolled in a community center cooking class. They celebrated with dollar store cupcakes that Anna adorned with sprinkles and excessive icing after Jerome assisted her in applying for a job at a non-profit cafe that employed single mothers. Every day seemed like a minor triumph, a step closer to stable ground and a step away from the cliff. But evening brought a strange type of silence that hummed with questions that Sarah was afraid to voice. Jerome saw that she kept her phone close at hand and charged, that she checked the locks twice before going to bed, and that she still panicked when the door suddenly knocked one evening just after supper. At first, there were 3 gentle taps that were measured and courteous. Jerome froze while washing dishes in the kitchen. Sarah looked up abruptly from where she had been sitting on the couch reading to Anna. She looked into his eyes. Another knock, more firmly. After cleaning his hands, Jerome moved toward the intercom. He hit the button. Indeed, a raspy voice could be heard. "Delivery. For Sarah Thompson." Jerome's forehead wrinkled. "Nothing was ordered by us." A pause occurred. "Then you may not have..." Almost silently. The blood in Jerome ran cold. Turning to Sarah, he muted the speaker. "Remain indoors. The bedroom door should be locked. Right now." Without saying anything, Sarah took Anna's hand, lifted Elijah out of his crib, and hurried down the hallway. After observing her vanish, Jerome returned his attention to the intercom. He firmly said, "Leave it at the front desk. Later, I'll pick it up." However, when he looked at the security camera feed, he saw a figure in a dark hoodie standing by the elevator with his back to the camera, not a delivery man in a uniform. Jerome called Mike right away. "He is present. Are you certain? Just a name he shouldn't know? No delivery. A patrol car will be sent to the building now. Remain in place." After hanging up, Jerome used the secondary bolt to secure the front door. He went into his study, unlocked a drawer, and took out the stun baton and pepper spray he had grudgingly bought the previous week. He detested guns, but he detested being powerless even more. He could hear Anna speaking softly to her mother down the hall. Once more, Elijah was fussing. The air was heavy and dense, akin to the pre-storm atmosphere. A tap on the door 15 minutes later surprised him once more. But this time, the voice was that of an officer. "LAPD, Mr. Carter." "Oh." With caution, Jerome opened the door. Mike stood next to a uniformed officer. Mike had a tight face. He was not caught by us. Before the lobby security could stop him, the man slipped out of the back stairs. Jerome tightened his jaw. He was familiar with her first and last name. Mike gave a somber nod. He's becoming worse. While Mike patrolled the penthouse's perimeter, inspecting all access points and confirming the footage, the police gathered statements. After finishing, Mike and Jerome waited outside the apartment in the corridor. "We should think about moving," Mike remarked. "For a while, at least. Now he's hunting." Jerome sighed. "You witnessed that. She had just begun to feel secure. Another fracture in the foundation will appear if we move her once more." Mike touched him on the shoulder. "It might be a hole she doesn't crawl out of if we don't." When Jerome came back inside, Sarah was still cuddled with the children, her face calm despite being pale. "He's gone," Jerome muttered. "However, we must discuss the next course of action." Sarah rocked Elijah in her arms as she gently rose up. "He is unstoppable. He is someone I know. Mike believes we ought to relocate you. A safe place where he can't track you down." Sarah gave a headshake. "I've had enough of running." "And I understand," Jerome answered softly. "However, it's no longer simply about you." Anna's eyes widened as she looked up. "Are we heading out?" Beside her, Jerome Kelt. "Not indefinitely. Until it's safe again, that is." Anna spoke in a little voice. "Will a kitchen be available?" He grinned. "An actual one. We'll bring the coloring books, I swear." Sarah surveyed the apartment, which had evolved into more than a place to stay. It had been only the start, a house. But it took sacrifice to survive. She gave a nod. "All right, let's get started." The following day, they relocated. Mike set up a gated, covert, and round-the-clock monitored safe home on the outskirts of Pasadena. Without any inquiries, Jerome paid 6 months in advance. The house was modest but tidy, with a fenced backyard where Anna could once more chase butterflies and a sunny porch. For the first few nights, Jerome stayed and helped them get settled by sleeping on the couch. Sarah started using the windowsill to grow tiny potted herbs. Under her bed, Anna neatly stacked her books. As long as someone held him as he sobbed, Elijah appeared blissfully oblivious to the changes. While Jerome was repairing a broken screen door on the third night, Sarah sat on the porch. Far away and silent, the stars were out. Sarah remarked softly, "I thought that was the end when I left him the first time." However, leaving does not equate to escaping. Sometimes it only makes the ache go away. Jerome gave a nod. "You're not alone now, though. That is the key distinction." She gave him a look. "Do you ever feel bad about it, taking us in?" He rested his back on the railing. "Never, even now, particularly right now." She gave a slight but genuine smile. "We were saved by you." He gave a headshake. "I just provided you a place to land. Number. The person who learned to fly is you." And they started over somewhere in the dark, away from the dangers and the anxiety. Not with absolute confidence or safety etched in stone, but with determination and optimism. Nestled among overgrown sycamores and away from the bustle of the outside world, the Pasadena safe house was situated on a peaceful cul-de-sac, a place where mailboxes still creaked, wind chimes sung erratically, and neighbors waved from porches without asking too many questions. The neighborhood breathed slowly and easily. Sarah was able to exhale for more than a minute for the first time in months. Jerome drove out to see how they were doing every morning. He brought fresh books for Anna, groceries, Mike's updates, and wherever possible, muffins from a local bakery that gave everything a unique flavor. The days went by slowly, yet carefully. Darnell was nowhere to be seen. Around the family, the atmosphere started to calm down once more. The previous tenant left dead rose bushes in the backyard, which Sarah spent hours trimming. Despite her lack of experience, the labor felt essential, as if her hands needed something to fix. Ever inquisitive and intelligent, Anna had started keeping a notebook. One afternoon, Sarah discovered her swinging her legs on the porch while using a blue gel pen to sketch in a spiral notebook. "What do you write?" Sarah inquired. "A book," Anna exclaimed with pride, concerning a girl who, despite living in a house that is not hers, makes it her own. Sarah blinked. "That sounds actual." Anna gave a shrug. "I simply want them to understand that it's acceptable to feel fear while being resilient." Sarah's heart ached with pride and grief as she kissed her daughter's forehead. "I already know no stronger girl than you." Sarah discovered Jerome repairing a leaking pipe beneath the sink in the kitchen that evening. With his sleeves pushed up to his elbows and his white shirt a little moist, he looked up. "Is everything all right?" he inquired. She rested her head on the doorframe. "Have you ever considered how peculiar this is? He used a dish towel to clean his hands. Do you imply that I'm becoming your handyman?" She grinned. "Number thesis. How events transpired, how you appeared." Jerome got up and walked across the room. "I don't think it's weird. I feel as though I should have been there. On that day, at that store." Sarah's voice fell to a whisper. "Oh, Anna's life was saved by you." Quietly, he added, "She saved mine." A pause occurred. "Why haven't you ever asked for more?" she inquired, almost hesitantly. Jerome's head cocked. "More? From me? From this?" He inhaled deeply. "Because healing is not a process that occurs on someone else's schedule. Sarah, I'm not here to fix you. I'm here to see how strong you are." Her eyes glistened with something more than appreciation, something like belief. But she didn't answer immediately. Mike called later that night. He said, "We got something. Darnell attempted to pay a check using Sarah's old ID. Fingerprints are left by idiots. Jerome took a seat. And we're going to file. Within 24 hours, warrants ought to be authorized. He remains local." Sarah was rocking Elijah by the window when Jerome broke the news to her. She stopped. "He's being arrested. That's the strategy." "Oh." Elijah's tiny fingers curled around her necklace as she glanced down at him. What if he doesn't leave in silence? Then, according to Jerome, he discovers that decisions have repercussions. The porch light caught Sarah's visage as she turned to face him for the first time, looking determined, fearful and defiant. "I'd want to attend." "What? I want to confront him when they get him." Jerome took a step ahead. "It's not required." "Yes, we can." "It is," she interrupted. "Telling him that he no longer owns me requires me to face him in the eyes. I'm not afraid, not my quiet." Without hesitation, Jerome looked into her face. "All right," he said. "We'll speak with Mike." Mike set up a planned pickup for the next day. They were aware that Darnell frequented a dilapidated pub in East Los Angeles on Thursday nights to play pool and eat. Sarah insisted, even though it was dangerous. Jerome remained silent. They headed downtown that evening after leaving Anna with an elderly neighbor called Mrs. Gonzalez, who had developed a soft spot for Herond. Sarah had her hair pulled back, no makeup, and a simple black hoodie on. She had a steely appearance. They waited a block from the bar in an unmarked SUV, with a drone camera close by. Mike's eyes were on the monitor while he sat in the driver's seat. Mike mentioned that he was smoking outside. Sarah balled her fists. Jerome put his hand on her shoulder. "Are you all right?" "No," she said, "but I'm prepared." It was quick when the cops arrived. Before Darnell could even finish his cigarette, he was given his rights, placed in handcuffs, and pinned. Before he noticed her, he kicked, spat profanities, and threatened everyone nearby. Sarah got out of the car with a composed expression. "You're lying," Darnell growled. She moved closer, barely audible. "You no longer frighten me," he twisted. Attempting to lunge, he was quickly restrained by the officers. Sarah spoke steadily. "My children will never be touched by you. My life will never be stolen by you again. This is where it ends," Darnell growled, anger in her eyes, but she did not recoil. She followed Mike back to the vehicle. Silently, Jerome followed. Sarah breathed deeply and slowly as she looked straight ahead inside the SUV. "That was courageous," Jerome remarked. She gave a headshake. "That was required." Well, Sarah closed her eyes and relaxed back in her seat as they drove away into the darkness, which felt lighter somehow. Something had changed inside of her, even though she wasn't grinning. She was no longer merely getting by. Piece by piece, breath by breath, she was taking back her territory, and the world didn't feel like a trap for the first time. It had a familiar feel to it. After Darnell's arrest, the Pasadena house seemed different. There were no banners, balloons, or official announcements, but as if the windows had finally been opened, something had changed in the air, and the years of stale fear were floating away with the wind. The following morning, Sarah stood barefoot in the kitchen, humming a lullaby she used to sing to Anna while she stirred oatmeal. Elijah's gummy smile lit up the room as he sat in his high chair and slapped his hands against the tray. With a pile of construction paper and the intention of creating a diploma for her mother, Anna wandered in. When Jerome got there, he had a newspaper under one arm and fresh groceries. He stopped at the front door and looked out the open window at the family. It was almost like a dream for a painful, fleeting instant. He had been scared to identify the dream. Sarah gave him a little knowing smile as she welcomed him inside. "When you want to divert my attention, you always bring blueberries." Jerome smiled. "Since blueberries work well with pancakes, I bring them. A bonus is distraction." He put the paper on the table and folded it open to the second page, which had the little headline, "Repeated offender in custody, fugitive apprehended in East L.A." Sarah didn't give it a glance. She said, "I don't have to read it. He is no longer in the news." Jerome nodded, his chest constricted. "I am. You're correct. You were always." They all went for a walk after breakfast, with Sarah strolling slowly next to him while the sun warmed her shoulders, Anna bouncing ahead, and Jerome carrying Elijah in a stroller. She was dressed in jeans, a casual cardigan, and her stance showed little sign of the armor she once carried. An elderly couple waved from their porch as they passed a row of townhouses. Sarah chuckled when the puppy attempted to lick her face, and Anna rushed over to pet their small dog. "This is the first time I've woken up without first checking every window," Sarah murmured softly. "There's cause for celebration," Jerome said. They visited a little community park that had a half-rusted swing set and worn benches. Anna yelled for Jerome to push her as she hurried over to the swings. Sarah sat on a bench and observed them with a gaze that was half amazement and half thankfulness as he complied. "Are you ever concerned that this is too good?" she questioned quietly. Jerome slowed the swing a little, saying that it's all only a moment before something breaks again. As Sarah agreed, "I used to think that, but now I believe in moments like these, because they're real, and we fought for them." Knowing that someone is on your side makes fighting simpler. She was under no need to express gratitude. Jerome gave Sarah a plain folder as a surprise later that afternoon. It contained a lease agreement that included her name at the top and the entire address of the Pasadena home. "You purchased this," she muttered. "I'm signing it over to you," he said. "It's legally yours, no conditions attached." Sarah looked at the paper. She twitched her fingers. She said, "I can't handle this." "Yes, you can, since this is restoration rather than charity, and you need a foundation to restore." Her eyes welled with tears. "Nothing has ever belonged to me. Not even a car. You now have a future, he replied quietly. Then, with glitter clinging to her fingers, Anna dashed in with her certificate of valor. I completed it. Mama, you are the world's most courageous girl. Sarah bent over and gave her daughter a firm hug. With his heart fuller and heavier than ever, Jerome took a step back to give them room. The four of them had a small dinner celebration that evening. Sarah lit a candle in the middle of the table, not for a formality, but for the light and its significance. Anna whispered to Jerome after supper, "Do you think Mama will ever marry you?" Jerome's water smothered him. "I'm not in charge of it, dear." Anna nodded wisely. "She should. True love is when you both adore soup and are dictatorial." Jerome chuckled till his eyes began to well up with tears. Sarah later joined him on the porch after the children had gone to sleep. She teased softly, and I heard what she had to say. Children say the most outrageous things. However, Jerome turned to her and said, "She's not wrong. Sarah, you never have, and you owe me nothing. That's why it means more," she replied. There was no longer a crushing hush between them. It was cozy and wealthy. "Do you think second chances exist?" she inquired. "I think there are people who stand up for them," he stated. Her head rested against his shoulder. "Then perhaps I do." 2. The air was cool at night. For the first time in a long, broken path, nothing was pursuing them, just the silence and the possibility of what might happen next, as the stars dispersed overhead like silent witnesses. Sarah woke up before dawn, the morning following their chat on the patio. Elijah's gentle breathing and the ticking of the ancient kitchen clock were the only sounds coming from the still-shadowed house. The sky was slowly turning from black to pale blue as she padded barefoot into the kitchen and stood by the sink. Something persisted, a memory she hadn't allowed, pressing itself into the silence. But for the first time in years, she wasn't scared of the day starting. She opened her journal, sat at the table, and brewed coffee. Notes and bits of thought she had scrawled since coming to Pasadena were strewn across the pages, some harsh, some hopeful. Her hand moved slowly today as she wrote a name she hadn't said in years, Tamika, Azista, her young self. The night before Sarah's permanent departure from home, when she was 19 and pregnant, uncertain and alone, was the last time they had communicated. Even though Tamika had pleaded with her to stay, Sarah had already packed her pride and dread into a backpack and left for a world that didn't give a damn about her survival. Since then, she had not heard from Tamika. Despite life's twists and turns over the years, that thread continued to tug at her, ragged but unbroken. Jerome entered silently, wiping his eyes from slumber. "Are you all right?" Sarah gave a nod. "I was pondering regarding my sister. I was unaware that you had one. Not at all. It's been 15 years since I last saw her. She may have been working in a library in Sacramento when I last heard from her. She had always been a bookworm." Jerome poured coffee for himself. "Want to track her down?" Sarah paused. "I don't know. What could I possibly say? I apologize for being absent. Here are my 2 children and my trauma." He rested his head on the counter. "You might simply remark, 'I missed you.'" "Oh." Jerome made a few private phone calls that afternoon as Anna played with sidewalk chalk in the driveway and Elijah napped. By nightfall, he had a phone number, an address, and a name. He gave Sarah the note. "She's currently a community college librarian in Oakland. Identical last name. It's her." Sarah gazed at the document. "I'm not sure if I'm prepared." Jerome stated there was no deadline, just a chance. The note was placed into her journal. "Thank you." Oh, Sarah didn't get much sleep that night. She listened to the peaceful hum of the home while she lay awake, watching the ceiling fan spin. Waves of memories surfaced, including arguments with their mother. Tamika reading fairy tales under the covers, and their mutual aspirations to leave their area. She called in the morning. 3 rings went through the phone. "Hi there?" A quiet, uncertain voice replied. Sarah's throat grew constricted. "Tamika?" A pause. A quick inhale followed. "Sarah?" Her voice broke. "Yes, I am." "Oh." There was a long pause on the other end. Sarah believed the phone had hung up. Then she heard the sound of someone attempting to contain their tears. Tamika muttered, "I thought you were dead. I searched for you for many years." Sarah choked on the words. "I'm sorry. I ought to have given a call. I ought to have." "No," answered Tamika firmly. "You had no choice but to leave. You fulfilled your obligation. Even though I was upset, I still loved you." With tears in her eyes, Sarah collapsed on the kitchen floor. "I now have children. Anna, a girl, Elijah, a baby boy. I'm safe, too. At last, I'm secure." "And I'm interested in meeting them," Tamika replied. "When you're prepared, I believe I'm now prepared." They traveled a week later. Anna sung half the way, and Elijah slept the most of the lengthy drive to Oakland, but the kids were soldiers. Sarah led the way while Jerome leased a small Airbnb close to the college campus. Tamika showed there with the same wide eyes and tentative grin Sarah had seen as a toddler. The spirit was the same, gentle, forceful, and familiar, despite her graying hair and slightly thinner frame. No dramatic tears were shed during the calm reunion. Instead, sisters who had survived different storms exchanged quivering hands, long hugs, and hushed apologies. Right away, Anna embraced Tamika, proudly displaying her drawings and sharing fantastic stories about how Mr. Jerome rescued us from the villain. After clinging to Sarah, Elijah relaxed and began to laugh when Tamika made goofy faces. Stories of childhood mischief, difficult years, dreams postponed and rediscovered were shared over dinner like wine. Jerome primarily listened, seeing how Sarah's laughing became more unrestrained and her shoulders less burdened by regret as she came to life in her sister's company. Tamika later drew Sarah away. Sarah shrugged. "You're stronger than I ever thought." "I had no other option." Tamika answered, "Yes, you did. You choose not to shatter." 2 women who had previously held their pain in private were now speaking out loud as they stood there in the kitchen, and a knot that Sarah had not realized was still gripped was loosened by something inside of her. She stated, "I want Anna and Elijah to start a family." Tamika grinned. "A real one. They do already." Tamika handed Anna a children's book with a handwritten letter on the inside cover before they left Oakland. "May your story always be heard. In honor of the most courageous girl I've ever met." Anna read the book silently in the back seat on the drive back the following morning. She questioned if we would have to wait a long time to see Auntie Tamika again. Sarah looked at her in the rearview mirror and answered, "No." No more. Sarah realized that this chapter wasn't about endings as the roadway, which was laced with promise and brightness, extended in front of them. The goal was to sew the past into the present, but using suffering, forgiveness, and fresh starts to weave a tapestry. It was about taking back family as well as safety. She also understood that family didn't have to be flawless. It has to be genuine. The letter came a week after they got back from Oakland. Sarah discovered it sandwiched between grocery ads and bills, its envelope basic and unmarked, save for a handwriting she recognized from her early years. Her name was written with the soft curves of someone who used to practice cursive on the back of church bulletins, but there was no return address or indication. She took a while to open it. Rather, she brought it inside, placed it on the kitchen table, and gazed at it as Anna painted a portrait of their family using stick figures and a boy that filled half the page, and Elijah rambled from his high chair. When Jerome entered, he saw that she was motionless. "Is everything okay?" She moved the envelope in his direction. "My mother gave it to me." "Oh," Jerome arched his brows but remained silent. Sarah muttered, "I haven't heard from her in more than 10 years. She was in Louisiana when I last saw her. When I left, she always claimed that I had embarrassed her. Jerome sat opposite her and said that I deserved the life I had chosen. It is not required that you open it." "I think I want to," she responded. "But I know." Sarah cuddled up with a blanket and a cup of tea on the porch after the children had gone to bed. As she broke the envelope and unfolded the thin, lined paper, Jerome sat patiently and silently next to her. The handwriting of her mother had shrunk, shakier. "If you're reading this, dear Sarah, it indicates that the number I located for you was legitimate. I'm not sure if you will ever respond. If you didn't, I wouldn't hold it against you. I haven't made a lot of money. However, I wanted to apologize for the shouting, for the verdict, for allowing my pride to overpower my affection. Your sister passed away, then I lost you. Now, each night as I sit on this porch, I question whether the quiet I hear is your voice declining to call. I hope you were able to find peace, that you fell in love, that you took on the role of mother I never had. I wish you will forgive me, even if you don't actually say it aloud. Always love, Mom." After reading it twice, Sarah read it a third time. Her hands were shaking toward the end. Jerome extended his hand to take hers. "Are you all right?" She blinked back tears as she nodded. "I'm not sure how to feel." I believed I had long since buried her voice. However, it remains alive in my mind. She seems to be making an effort. Sarah laughed bitterly. "Try it now, after everything." Jerome remained silent. He gave the moment some breathing room. I'm not sure if I can forgive her," she said. According to Jerome, forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It is about letting go of the burden. She let out a breath and gazed into the shadowed yard. "I'll respond in writing. Not right now, but shortly." "Oh." To Jerome's astonishment, Sarah asked if they may take the children into the city the next morning. Specifically, she wanted to go to a museum, the Downtown Cultural Center's exhibit on African American history and culture. Sarah stated that it's time for Anna to realize her origins, the good and the difficult. They looked around the exhibit all afternoon. Anna had 100 questions, some of which were humorous and most of which were profound. Every time he saw a picture of kids, Elijah would laugh, but Sarah stayed the longest. A tattered pair of shoes was on display, alongside a black and white photograph of a youngster marching with her mother during a civil rights demonstration in the 1960s behind glass. Sarah murmured that she was only 8. Take a look at her face. She stood straight as if she knew the world would try to silence her. Anna was standing next to her, staring up. She seemed courageous. "She was," Sarah remarked. "You are too." Well, they then proceeded to a wall containing framed letters, poetry, and journal entries penned by women during riots, peaceful resistance, and liberation marches. Sarah's voice caught as she read aloud, "Even in the fire, I still believe in blooming. I continue to sing my name even amid the quiet." Jerome, who had been observing her with admiration, turned to face her. "I want to write something like that so people always know where we come from. Not for the museum, Anna." "Or Elijah," he responded. "You already are." Each day. That evening, Sarah returned home, sat at the dining table, and started writing. Not to her mother yet, but to her kids, Anna and Elijah. "I haven't told you some things because they hurt. Not because I'm embarrassed. I want you to know that I have experienced fire. Even though I felt scared, broken and alone, my love for you has never wavered. You were the reason I was still alive before you were even born. I learnt how to create warmth piece by piece, even though I didn't grow up in a warm home. I now know how to struggle for peace and trust. I will do everything in my power to ensure that you have a better world than mine." When she was finished, your mother, who I adore, folded the letter, put it in an envelope, and put it in a little wooden box that she had discovered the previous week at a second-hand shop. Over time, she would add more letters to the box. Facts, recollections. A reminder, because museums weren't the only places where stories were told. They were communicated through words, murmurs, and the courageous act of sharing. Additionally, Sarah was no longer only surviving her past for the first time. One letter at a time, she was taking it back. Sarah got a surprise email from the community center a few weeks after they visited the museum. It was succinct and direct. "A community panel on overcoming hardship and recovering from trauma is being held. We would be delighted to hear from you." She laughed at first, not with delight, but with incredulity. "Me? On a panel?" Jerome raised his gaze from the article. "Why don't you?" she said. "I'm not a speaker. I'm still getting my bearings. I'm not even sure what I would say." "You'd be honest," Jerome said, "and no script can match that strength." For a few days, Sarah pondered the notion. The prospect of sharing her experience and perhaps helping someone else tugged at her, but the idea of standing in front of strangers made her stomach turn. She wrote, "What I know now," at the top of a blank notepad she had on her desk one evening. No speech was written by her. She composed a narrative. The panel night arrived in a flash. The gathering was held in the high school auditorium, which was small but crowded, with folding seats spread out on the floor and dim lighting hanging overhead. 4 chairs and a table with water bottles were seated on stage. An addiction counselor, a youth mentor who had served time in prison, and a therapist who had survived domestic abuse were already seated among the other speakers. Sarah's hands trembled a little as she walked on stage, feeling uncomfortable in her plain clothing. However, she was taken aback by the cheers when the MC presented her as a mother, a fighter, and a lady constructing one block at a time. "I used to believe that just living was plenty." Then she inhaled deeply and started, "that I was doing all right when I woke up every day and didn't collapse. Surviving was no longer sufficient after I had my daughter. She required more. She was worthy of more." The auditorium became quiet. "I broke up with a man who made me feel unimportant. I was living beneath a bridge. I pleaded for milk, and a stranger didn't turn away one day. He only noticed the filth on my clothing or the fear in my eyes, not me." She looked over at Jerome in the crowd. He nodded slightly, steadily, and with pride. "Since then, I've been terrified every day, but I still choose to go. For myself, my children, and any women who believe they are too damaged to start over." After she was done, there was a brief pause before the room erupted in cheers. Everyone stood. A few people sobbed. After that, a few approached her to express their gratitude, give her hugs, and tell her that her narrative restored something they had previously believed to be gone. "I hope I'm leaving him tonight," one woman said, clutching her hand. "Due to you." "Well," Sarah whispered back, holding her tight, "you're not by yourself." Jerome took her home after the panel. The springtime air was warm and filled with distant music from a backyard BBQ, and the windows were rolled down. "You were amazing," he said. "I was afraid." She turned to him and said, "You didn't show it." "You were correct. Speaking the truth has great power. I took no action. You lived through it, don't you?" Softly, she said, "I was reminded that I was valuable by you." At the red light, he grabbed for her hand. Always. When they got home, Anna greeted them in her pajamas while holding a handcrafted banner in glittery crayon that said, "Go Mom." Elijah spoke incoherently from the playpen. From the kitchen, Tamika, who had been watching the kids for the evening, grinned. Tamika teasingly handed Sarah a cup of tea and said, "I heard you were a hit." "I won because I didn't faint." Together, they laughed, and Sarah had a light in her chest that went beyond simple joy. Peace, perhaps. When the children had gone to sleep that evening, Sarah went back to her writing box. She took out a new piece of paper and started writing another note. To the woman who discovers this one day, perhaps you're in a grocery store, a courthouse, or a shelter where I used to be. Perhaps you're trembling from embarrassment, anxiety, or the silent pain of being unseen. I recognize you. I want you to know something that no one told me when I was you. There is yet more to your story. Your wounds do not define you. Who left you or who harmed you does not define you. Even in fragments, you remain entire, and there is someone out there who is eager to hear your truth. Say it, with every ounce of my strength. Sarah. She put the letter under the others and sealed it. The weight of the box was increasing, but so did her voice, and perhaps, just as someone had once been a light for her, that voice might turn into a light elsewhere in the globe. Sarah was standing in the vacant room at the back of the home, which they had been using for storage ever since they moved in, the morning after the panel. The dusty blinds let in sunlight, which left long streaks on the boxes labeled "Winter Stuff" and "Other Stuff." She gazed at the room, envisioning something else. A workstation by the window, journal-lined shelves, perhaps a bulletin board with thoughts, dreams, and pieces of the past transformed into something new. An hour later, Jerome discovered her dragging an old filing cabinet across the floor, with her hair tied back and her sleeves rolled up. "Getting started early," she said, a little out of breath. "I'm creating a writing room. Or at least a peaceful area where my papers aren't colored by the kids." He smiled. "Do you need help?" Together, they lifted, sorted, and laughed when they discovered a box of Christmas ornaments that Anna had marked as Santa items rather than garbage. By midday, the walls were naked and the floor was spotless. Sarah placed her hands on her hips and stood in the center. "It's mine, even though it's small." Jerome responded, "You deserve it. Do you want to paint?" "Only if we can choose a true hue instead of sandy beige or eggshell." Joyful without being noisy, they chose a gentle robin's egg blue. The space started to take shape over the course of the following few days. Anna insisted on hanging one of her framed drawings, citing inspiration, while Tamika contributed an antique typewriter for decor. Sarah chose to ignore Elijah's contribution of crayon smudges on the baseboard. She said it's part of the story. Sarah sat down at her new workstation one wet Friday afternoon, opened a brand new notebook, and started writing her narrative from the beginning, not as a journal or a letter, but as a book. She took her time writing the first line. "Before I became a mother, I was invisible. Then I understood that the wrong people had been watching me all along." She continued to write as the rain pattered softly on the window. Yes, there was pain, but there was also strength. The memories came in waves. The times she had struggled to keep Anna safe, the starvation, the terror, the day at the convenience store that altered everything, and Jerome's realization that a stranger's generosity could have such a profound impact that it completely changed a person's life. She had written 6 pages by the time dinner time arrived. Not much, but enough to feel the shift and to believe. Jerome observed her sparkle at dinner. "A productive day," she said. "I started the book. I will accomplish it, even if it takes a year or 10. I read it all at once," he said. "You must say that. You are almost like family." With his fork partially in his mouth, Jerome hesitated. Realistically, Sarah raised an eyebrow. "It depends. Are you going to stay?" He echoed her tone when he said, "Depends. Are you going to evict me?" Anna, who was obviously aware of the tension but didn't comprehend it, laughed. "The two of you speak like movie characters," Sarah remarked. "We're still working out the script." And Jerome grinned. Sarah entered the kitchen that evening to find Jerome cleaning the counter after the children had gone to bed, and the home was quiet. She started, "I was thinking about what you said, about family." He looked up toward her. "I want you to stay for everything," she remarked, "not just for repairs and supper." Jerome scrutinized her features, taking care not to misinterpret her. "Really?" he inquired. "Actually," he approached cautiously, allowing her time to reconsider, but she remained motionless and unflinching. It felt like the closure of one chapter and the opening of another when he took her hand, one based on decision as well as rescue. There was no need for additional words as they stood in the kitchen for a while. The downpour outside became to mist, and something calmed inside. Sarah had a meeting with the community center's director the next week. The woman said, "We would like to offer you a position on our advisory board." Sarah blinked. "Your story touched a chord, and we think you could help shape our programs going forward." The director remarked, "You've lived more than half of us ever will. And you're honest. That's what people need." "I've never served on a board." Sarah walked home that night with a new sense of purpose that beyond healing and survival after accepting, feeling both humbled and intimidated. Jerome embraced her with pride after she informed him, "It appears that you are a natural force." She joked, "I like force of nurture." He chuckled. "In any case, please remember me to never undervalue you again." Later on, Sarah sat in her writing room and gazed at the unfinished pages of her manuscript. After reading her last phrase again, she put another one underneath it. "I rebuilt instead of simply fleeing, and now I assist others in doing the same." Gently, she closed the journal. Even though it was still raining, she felt rooted inside and was no longer a lady defined by her past, but rather by her future. Once more, the letter came unexpectedly and without a return address. But this time it wasn't from her mother. The writing was more rushed, skewed, and aggressive. Sarah immediately recognized it. She hadn't seen it in years, since the day she left the courthouse. She ripped it open with trembling hands. "I'm trying, Sarah. I've been sober for 6 months and I'm enrolled in a program. My sponsor says I need to make amends, not just for myself, but also for the people I hurt. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that I'm still alive and that I've finally realized what I became and what I did to you and our children. Here's a number if you ever want to talk. I understand if not." Sarah sat motionless. Darnell. Though not deep enough to shatter everything, the letter seemed like a fissure in the foundation she had worked so hard to establish over the years. The chilly air pricked her when she entered the yard. Even after Jerome discovered her sitting on the porch swing with the letter gripped in her fist, she took a while to tell him. He sat silently next to her. At last, she spoke something. "It comes from Darnell." Jerome's mouth clenched. "Is he gone?" "Although the number is still in, he claims to be clean, is in recovery, and apologizes." Jerome bided his time. "How are you feeling?" "Angry, relieved, horrified, and somehow unsurprised," she responded. "I don't know," Jerome whispered softly. "You owe him nothing, I understand," she muttered. "But I still want to hear it, not for him, but for me." She nodded. "You don't have to make a decision right now. I won't ignore it, but I also won't ignore it." After the children had gone to bed and the house was quiet, Sarah sat down at her desk that evening and wrote Nod a reply, a letter she never meant to write. "You broke me, Darnell. Things in me that I didn't even know could break were broken by you. You caused me to doubt my voice, my strength, and my value, but I eventually regained it all. Maybe not with you, but perhaps because of you. I hope you mean it for your own soul. But I don't need your apology to make me feel better. I didn't let you back in, so if you ever talk to Anna or Elijah, it will be because they want to. When you raised your fist rather than your heart, you forfeited that right. I want peace, therefore I forgive you, but I will never forget and I will never return. Sarah slid the folded letter into the same box as the others. Another page turned, another chapter penned. Sarah appeared in front of her first advisory board meeting a few days later. Coffee was served in mismatched mugs, and the event was hosted in a community area on the east side with welcome but worn folding seats. She was warmly welcomed by the other board members, who were all elderly ladies, social workers, and counselors. They talked about future projects, emergency food pantries, mentorship programs for adolescent moms, and housing initiatives for women fleeing violent marriages. After listening and making notes, Sarah held up her hand. "I would like to suggest a writing workshop for survivors," she stated. "A location where they can share their stories in order to recover their narrative, as well as for healing." The room fell silent. Miss Linda, one of the older women, gave a slow nod. "That's strong. What do you call it?" After giving it some thinking, Sarah responded while remaining upright. The moniker stayed. Flyers showed up in clinics and shelters in a matter of weeks. Standing, women regaining their voice can participate in a free weekly writing circle. Sarah led the first class with a hopeful heart and nervous hands. That day, 10 distinct women with scars showed up. She didn't begin by establishing guidelines or standards. She asked a question first. When did you first recognize that you were more than the events that transpired? Slowly, the answers emerged. Then, as if floodgates had opened, tears, laughter, fury, relief. Each woman had penned a line, a recollection, or a truth by the end of the session. Last, Sarah read hers out loud. "I found a miracle while pleading for milk. I believed I was disintegrating. But it was actually the start of my recovery." The women gave a gentle clap. Sarah's hand was touched by one of them. "This seemed possible because of you." Sarah grinned. "You give it life." Anna was waiting with a surprise at home. Like her mother, she had transformed a shoebox into her own letterbox. She had written "My Big Brave Feelings" in crayon on the lid. She presented her first letter to Sarah. "Don't be scared to be loud, dear future self. Nobody should be able to tell you that you are too much. Keep in mind that soup always helps, and you come from strong people." Anna, love. Sarah got tears in her eyes. "Baby girl, you're going to make a huge difference in the world." "No," Anna answered with pride. "I will write a piece about it." Sarah suddenly realized that each scar had turned into a sentence. Always use a comma. Every survival action has a time frame. She no longer had an escape narrative. It left a legacy. She continued to write. The call arrived on the first warm Saturday of spring. In the backyard, Sarah had just finished hanging laundry. Anna was crouching close by, creating chalk murals on the stepping stones, while Elijah was babbling in the grass next to her. Inside, humming an old Sam Cooke song, Jerome was making lunch. On the windowsill, her phone was buzzing. "Hi there," wiping her hands on her slacks, she replied. A woman spoke in a quiet but determined tone. "Miss Walker, this is West Ridge Correctional's Karen Lewis. On Darnell Johnson's behalf, I'm calling." Sarah felt a knot in her stomach. The woman swiftly added, "He's not in trouble. In fact, he has been asked to include a closing statement in the rehabilitation display inside the institution. He expressly requested permission to quote your letter." Sarah blinked. "Which letter? The one you didn't send?" Her heart skipped a beat. "How did he?" "I wrote you," he said. "He knew what you would say, even though you never did. He claimed that it brought him closure and serenity, and he now wants to demonstrate to others what true accountability looks like. Sarah's thoughts were racing. What is it that he wishes to quote? "I forgive you because I want peace, but I will never forget and I will never return," Karen read. Between them, there was silence. "Yes, he can use it," Sarah finally said. "Thank you," Karen said. "You ought to be aware that he has changed. The man you remember is not him. He is relocating to a different state, but he will be released later this year. He doesn't want to mess with your life." Although the woman couldn't see her, Sarah gave a slow nod. "That's excellent." After the call ended, she paused and stared out at her kids, Anna painting hearts on the stones, Elijah searching for a butterfly. When she returned inside, Jerome was at the sink cleaning carrots. She mentioned that Darnell was using a portion of my letter in an inmate program at that particular prison. Jerome patted his hands dry. "How are you feeling?" "Lighter. Not because of him, but because it's done. That piece of meat has been put to rest," she remarked. She was slicing tomatoes at the counter with him. "In order to offer the ladies in my program a voice outside of the center, I'm considering hosting a reading and gathering there." Jerome grinned. "I'll be in the front row." The center underwent a transformation 2 weeks later. In addition to filling the space with folding chairs and hanging string lights over the ceiling, volunteers made coffee and baked cookies. The voices of survival were still standing on a small stage at the front with a modest placard. The room immediately filled with neighborhood residents, students, advocates, and survivors. Sarah didn't use makeup and wore a plain blue outfit. Tonight, she didn't require armor, just the truth. She spoke a few words to start the evening. Tonight is about reclaiming our experiences and sharing them shamelessly, not about suffering. The women came to the stage one by one. They read letters to their former selves, poems and diary entries. There were moments of astonished quiet, tears and laughter, but throughout it all there remained a steady, strong, and ferocious heartbeat. Sarah took her place and opened her notepad when it was her turn. She started by saying, "I was invisible, but now I stand here seen." She talked about the night in the convenience store, the commitment she made to the man who bought her milk, the words that made a huge difference, and the first chapter of her memoir, "I swear that when I'm older, I'll pay." The room took a breath. She concluded her first workshop with the same sentence, "I found a miracle while pleading for milk. I believed I was disintegrating, but it was actually the start of my recovery." There was loud cheering when she stepped down. After that, as the guests mixed and background music played quietly, a woman in her 60s with silver hair at the temples and kindly red-rimmed eyes came up to hear a stranger. The woman said, "I feel like I've known you forever, even though I don't know you. Once, your tale was mine. I believe I'm now prepared to share it." Sarah gave her a hug. That evening, Anna came running up with a paper crown made out of folded flyers as they were packing up the chairs and turning off the lights. "You're the Queen of Brave, so I created you something," she remarked. Sarah knelt and laughed through her tears. "Then you're the Nope," Anna remarked with pride. "The author is me." Sarah sat down at her writing desk again at home after the children had gone to sleep. The manuscript was almost complete, her fingers steady. She typed the last sentence slowly. "This is not a rescue story. This narrative is about making the decision to live despite all the reasons life throws at you to do otherwise. And you've already begun, if you're reading this." She shut the journal. The night was clear outside. Her heart was full on the inside, and because she had someone else would start over somewhere. We may learn from Sarah's narrative that real healing starts when we take back our voice. It serves as a reminder that surviving marks the start of change rather than the completion of the journey. Sarah demonstrates that even the most broken parts can be picked up and transformed into a legacy of strength via her suffering, resiliency, and bravery in speaking her truth. Her story serves as a monument to the silent strength of community, the importance of forgiving without forgetting, and the profound realization that who we are is more than what happened to us.